family finally found book 1 after the dust settles. Chapter 8, an uncomfortable visit, and a normal evening. As the boys shared lunch with the town librarian, Maddie walked into the police station. Her laptop messenger bag hung off her shoulder. Casting her eyes around the dim station, the power was out as the electric company fixed some lines up the street. A smile curled her lips as she spied her husband, bent over his desk. He ran a hand through his hair as he frowned at the paperwork before him, a habit when he was concentrating, and something she found quite endearing.
"There's the hardest working officer in Green Hills,"
she said, moving toward him. His head bobbed up at the sound of her voice and he smiled. Tom abandoned his mountain of paperwork to meet her for a kiss.
"Hey babe, on your lunch break?"
She nodded.
"I figured it would be a good time to meet with that guy about that thing."
She glanced at Wade, who wasn't even pretending not to listen in.
"I saw him down the street earlier. Let's go find him."
"Right."
She turned to Wade, offering him a warm smile.
"Hi, Wade. Is Ozzy behaving?"
He's fine, Maddie. Don't worry about it. It keeps me company when Mom is out of the house.
"That's good. We'll be by to get him when the house is patched up."
There's no hurry. Maybe Mom will let me get a dog now that she sees how good I take care of them.
The couple exchanged a glance that said the same thing. Dude needed a girlfriend. He still lived with his mother, who seemed determined to keep coddling him as though he were still a kid. Wade had always been a little sensitive, but it had gotten worse in the 5 years since his father died.
Okay, then. I'll be back in a bit, Wade. Hold down the fort, will you?
Will do, Sheriff. Good luck with the guy and thing.
Maddie uttered a soft giggle as Tom gave a little wave. Tom was struck with the familiarity of the scene. He and Maddie sat at a booth in the same Chinese restaurant they had all gone to on Sunday, after the Robotnik battle. Had that only been 2 days ago? Only instead of 3 alien boys sitting across from them, it was Commander Walters. The older man flicked his eyes between the couple, his face unreadable.
"I suppose you asked me here to talk about the agreement."
Yes, specifically, I want to know about the whole call on the boys when we feel like it part.
Dr. Wachowski, as I told your husband, it will only be as a last resort, when all other options have been exhausted.
But you'd still call them,
She said, and Tom could hear the cold control in her voice. Anger boiled just under the surface, and she was doing a marvelous job keeping it contained. For now.
You'd still send them into a dangerous situation when you and all your big guns couldn't deal with it.
As we have seen from the threat of Dr. Robotnik, their powers have proven invaluable in protecting the local populace.
But they had a personal stake in that.
Tom said, tapping a finger on the table.
Robotnik had a personal vendetta against Sonic. Tails came to help Sonic specifically. Knuckles was tricked by that nutjob. All three had personal reasons that were important to them to work together and take Robotnik down. Why should they fight in any theoretical future battles against someone? Or something that may not be any of their concern?
Even if it threatens the entire country, the entire planet?
They're children, Commander. Yes, they have these powers, but they're still children. Tails is 8. Sonic is about to turn 13, and I estimate Knuckles at about 16. By our country standards, they can't even enlist in the military for another few years at least. And you want to use them as some secret weapon, a little batch of super soldiers.
The older man leaned forward, his voice dropping and taking on a slight tinge of urgency.
I don't want to do anything with them. Yes, I know they're kids, and even though they have these incredible powers, we shouldn't send kids in to fight for us. If they want to help, as they did with Robotnik, we would welcome it. Like nothing more than to leave them out of it.
Then why have that part in the agreement at all? Just take it out.
Walters shook his head.
Because I've been in the military a long time, ma'am. There are things the government does not want anyone to know. There are some things even a good portion of the government and military doesn't know. Dangerous things. Things only those boys may be able to handle should the need arise.
Like Area 51 type of things, other alien type of things.
Tom asked, leaning forward and adopting the same hushed tone. The commander's brows knit together, and he pulled back, casting his eyes around the restaurant. Tom glanced around too. Most tables were occupied, and the commander seemed the only one in military clothing, but the man's words from yesterday rang in the sheriff's ears. There are some in my own unit I don't trust completely. I need to play everything by the book to keep the jackals from nipping at my heels.
I'm not at liberty to discuss any details.
The older man said now, sitting straighter in the booth, his voice back to the regulation just the facts tone.
I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, and technically I could take that stipulation out, but you don't know what I know.
Those boys could be our last line of defense against something more dangerous than some crazy man with delusions of grandeur. Something only they may be able to deal with.
Tom and Maddie exchanged a glance. Their conversation from last night resurfaced. They didn't trust Commander Walters, but they believed him.
Can it be their decision? I understand that there are things you can't tell us. The government loves its secrets, after all. But can the choice to fight or not fight be theirs?
Walters pulled his lips together in a tight line.
Dr. Wachowski, I can't.
They're good kids, Commander.
Tom said, matching his tone with his wife's.
They all jumped right in to fight Robotnik, not just because it was personal, but because it was the right thing to do.
His thoughts went to Sonic and his nighttime crime-fighting escapades.
I think they'd help you if you needed them, if they felt it was right.
But please, let it be their choice.
The commander looked between the couple, his brows furrowed. The bell over the door tingled, and he glanced over, visibly relaxing when a young couple walked in. Finally he looked back at Tom, giving a small nod.
I think that would be fair.
Maddie breathed a relieved sigh, and offered the older man a smile.
Thank you.
Do you have the paperwork?
She pulled the large envelope from her bag. Walters pulled the papers out, flipping through them quickly until he found what he was looking for.
Have a pen?
Tom pulled one from his shirt pocket. The commander made a quick note in the margin of the page, and added his initials.
There. The boys now have the choice to fight or not, should we need them in the future.
Thank you, Commander.
Tom said, holding a hand out. The commander took it and gave a quick shake, cocking an eyebrow.
I hope your faith in those boys is well placed, Sheriff, because if you're wrong, things could turn very bad.
Hey, that's only if whatever big bad you're talking about shows up. Try to be more positive.
The sheriff said, taking his hand back.
Hoping for the best isn't what the U.S. military does, Sheriff.
Walters said, pushing himself out of the booth.
We prepare for the worst and pray it's enough. I'll let you two finish filling out those papers. Drop them off with me when you're done.
With a final nod, the commander of Juin walked away. Tom turned to his wife, who was fidgeting with the pen.
That went pretty well, I think.
She nodded, a sad smile on her lips.
I feel like we just volunteered the boys for something horrible. And now they have a ticking clock above their heads. We just don't know when it's going to go off.
Hey,
He said, wrapping an arm around her and pulling her close.
it's gonna be their choice, remember?
She shook her head.
But you know they'll do it, and Sonic would be leading the charge.
Tom uttered a small laugh, one that was more nerves than humor.
Yeah, he probably would.
The pen clicked open and closed over and over, as Maddie's nervous thumb jittered on the button at the top.
Did we do the right thing?
The sheriff sighed, running a hand down his face.
Babe, sometimes there is no good choice, no right thing. Sometimes all you can do is the less wrong thing.
She thought quietly for a few seconds before nodding.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
She uttered a shaky sigh.
But hey, like you said, maybe nothing will happen and we'll never hear from GUN.
Yeah, maybe.
Tom said, watching as she pulled the papers together. Truth be told, this whole situation sucked. Tom could all too easily picture Sonic, determination etched on his furry face, eagerly running toward whatever horrible enemy Walters had alluded to. Because the boy fancied himself a hero. Tails would run right after him, and Knuckles would likely jump feet first into the fray as well. Because they're kids and still have that I'm invincible mindset. They wouldn't think about what if. They wouldn't pause if they knew people were in danger, which he supposed did make them heroes. But history was full of dead heroes. He just hoped the boys wouldn't end up joining that list. He pushed all these thoughts away and moved closer to Maddie. They carefully read over each page of the agreement, and signed, initialed, and dated where necessary. Tom would drop the packet off with Walters later, but for now they just hoped they were doing the right thing. Later in the afternoon, the boys in question were back in the forest, walking deeper and deeper through the trees. Knuckles was again struck with how similar it felt to home, and breathed deep of the familiar sense. He shifted the bag of library books on his shoulder. It wasn't heavy, just awkward. Between that bag and the one containing the emerald, he walked with a slightly lumbering gait.
Where are we going?
Tails asked. He alternated between walking and hovering behind Sonic.
We're getting pretty far away from town.
The hedgehog was unusually quiet, and when he spoke his voice was soft.
I'm gonna show you where I lived before Tom and Maddie took me in.
He uttered a humorless laugh.
I don't really know why. It just seems like I should.
We're going to your cave?
Tails asked, his voice just as soft. Sonic nodded.
We don't have to if you're not up to it.
No, I want you to see it.
The blue boy said, hopping over a down tree. They walked in silence for a few minutes, and Knuckles tried to interpret the hedgehog's current mindset. He sounded unhappy to be leading them to his previous shelter. So then why take them at all? There didn't seem to be any other emotions entrenched in the boy's words. No sharpness to indicate anger or insult. He did not cast any looks at Knuckles, and seemed focused solely on where he was leading them.
Why? You do not seem to want to. Why take us where you do not want to be?
The echidna finally asked, his confusion getting the better of him. Sonic slowed to a stop, and stood facing away for a moment. Then he turned, and Knuckles was taken aback by the look on the boy's face. Normally so vibrant and expressive, the hedgehog now wore an expression the echidna had a hard time identifying. It was simply blank. His eyes were almost hollow in their emptiness. The smile curling one side of the hedgehog's mouth did nothing to convey happiness, instead giving the boy a look of tired sadness.
Because it was my home for a long time. I want you to see it.
He turned and began walking again, and behind him the fox and echidna exchanged a glance. Tails gave a small shrug and followed Sonic, with an even more confused Knuckles trailing after. Sonic watched his feet as he drew ever closer to the cave he had called home for the better part of 10 years. He knew these woods like the back of his hand, and could traverse them blindfolded. Actually tried it once, in fact, which had been more difficult than the expression suggested. Stupid saying, really? Why exactly was he leading Tails and Knuckles to his old cave? It had made sense back at the library. Show them the place where he'd essentially grown up. He'd shown them practically everywhere else in Green Hills, so it made sense to end with his old home before heading back to his new one. But now, as they closed the distance to the entrance, a cold lump appeared in the boy's chest. It was all too easy to feel those icy tendrils of loneliness curl around him as the familiar rocks and trees came into sight. His home before home.
Here we are,
he said, and his voice sounded flat to his own ears. He didn't turn to check on the others, he could hear them right behind him. The hole leading down to the cave gaped at him, like a dirt-covered mouth in the rocky mound. He'd had a nightmare once where the entrance actually did turn into a mouth, wanting to eat him whole. It was stupid, but ever since then he had tried to simply jump in without thinking about it too much. Now he stood at the entrance, peering into the dark. He twisted his ears to catch any sounds from below, as he had once returned to find a badger making itself at home among his things. It had not been easy to remove, and left him with a few scars beneath his fur. When no unusual sounds reached him, he let out the breath he wasn't aware he had been holding. He didn't want to go in. This whole idea was stupid. They didn't care to see his cave. Why in the world did he think they would? It was just a cave. A cold, damp, dark cave full of lonely memories and lots of nightmares and tears. And thoughts. Lots and lots of thoughts. Scary ones. Sad ones. Angry ones. Dark ones. It was just a cave. But it was also him. 10 years of his life had seeped into those wet cave walls. His childhood. His life.
Sonic, we don't have to go in. Let's go back to your home.
Home. This had been home. Sonic placed his library book on the mossy ground next to the opening, and rolled into the darkness below. When the hedgehog disappeared into the hole, Knuckles gave a small gasp. The cave was dark. There was no telling what kind of creatures could be waiting inside.
Wait here.
He grunted at the fox before dropping the bag of library books near Sonic's, and diving into the hole himself. He landed with a roll, leaping to his feet and scanning the interior for signs of danger. All he found was the hedgehog, standing in the middle of the cave and looking around himself.
Knuckles!
Tails called, poking his head into the entrance. The echidna looked up, giving the kid a nod.
It is safe to come down, young fox.
Tails gave a little nod and spun his namesakes to lower himself inside. He looked around, his pupils dilating to allow better visibility.
This is where you lived.
The hedgehog nodded, moving toward the wall. A large sign hung there, much like the ones Knuckles had seen posted near the roads in town. Sonic looked up at it, uttering a soft laugh.
I guess that was too big to get out.
Knuckles looked around, squinting in the darkness. The cave was less than half the size of the attic, with a lower ceiling. The moisture clinging to the walls and floor made the air thick and heavy. He sniffed and wrinkled his nose. It smelled of mold and damp leaves. But he must admit it was an effective shelter. Easily defended. Only one entrance, rock walls, and likely missed if you didn't know exactly where to look for it. In terms of safety, it was a good choice.
A well-hidden burrow, Sonic. It must have kept you safe from your enemies during your time here.
The echidna said, nodding. The hedgehog said nothing, but Knuckles noted how the boy hunched his shoulders.
I didn't have enemies, Knuckles. Well, before Eggman anyway. No one knew I existed. I didn't have anyone.
Tails exchanged another look with the echidna, before looking back at Sonic. Knuckles hunched his own shoulders, cursing his foolish mouth. The hedgehog was obviously uncomfortable, and being here had brought back some hard memories for the boy. His life hadn't been like Knuckles. He hadn't had to fight or evaluate every situation for danger or attack. This cave wasn't a one-night resting place, meant to keep the boy safe from would-be attackers before he moved on. It had been his home. For years. This little space that was dark and wet and so isolated from everything. It wasn't a home. It was a prison. One the hedgehog could leave at will, but a prison nonetheless. Again, the events of that day those many years ago bobbed to the front of Knuckles' mind. The reason why Sonic had been sent here. The reason the boy had been alone for all that time. The echidna opened his mouth, reaching a hand toward the hedgehog. What could he say? He didn't want to make things worse. He closed his mouth and pulled his hand back. Tails glanced at Knuckles, watching as the older boy seemed to want to say something to Sonic, before thinking better of it. The echidna rubbed an arm with his other hand, looking embarrassed and troubled. The kit turned toward the hedgehog, who wasn't looking much better. The blue boy stood with his head lowered, shoulders hunched. He couldn't see the older boy's face, but his body language indicated pain. Sorrow. Tails' chest tightened at the sight of his hero, the boy who didn't seem afraid of anything, hurting so badly.
So, my monitoring equipment couldn't see in here. What did you do for fun?
Sonic stood silent for a moment, before turning toward the kit with a shrug.
Oh, the usual things any super cool guy would do in his man cave?
He said, waving a dismissive hand and sounding a little too perky.
Played video games, rocked out to music, challenged myself at ping pong, read comics, that kinda stuff.
Tails curled his lip in a smile. Maybe if he could get Sonic talking, remembering the fun times, things would get better. Maybe this strange air between the older boys would dissipate.
Sounds cool.
Oh, super cool!
The hedgehog nodded. A smile spread across his muzzle, making the one on Tails' lips falter. Sonic's was too wide and didn't match the tone of his voice.
No rules, no curfew, no annoying neighbors. No one to tell you what to do, or where to go, or kiss you goodnight, or hug you after a nightmare, or help brush through your fur when you're quilling, or just be there when you need to know you're not alone.
He uttered a sharp laugh.
Yep, aside from the whole soul-crippling loneliness thing, living here was a dream come true for a kid.
The kit winced, his ears flicking backward. A tail curled around to the front, and he stroked it with shaky hands. Was Sonic mad at him? He couldn't tell. The boy was obviously upset, but Tails couldn't piece together why. It had been his idea to come here. If it brought back such painful memories, why do that? Questions flashed through the kit's mind in a blur, but came to a sudden and jarring halt when the blue sparks began to jump across Sonic's quills. Tails remembered the burst of pure chaos energy that had reached all the way to his home world. The one that had alerted him to Sonic's existence. The one that had caused an 800-mile power outage here on Earth. Sonic's strong emotions had created that energy pulse. And right now he and Knuckles were trapped in a small, wet cave with an emotionally off-balance hedgehog capable of creating an energy blast powerful enough to take down the entire energy grid of half a country. His other tail came round to fully envelope him. The fur frizzed and he chewed his lip. Sonic was no stranger to bad ideas. Dumping an entire bottle of dish soap into the washing machine had been a bad idea. His attempt at helping out with the laundry ended in a sudsy tidal wave that filled the entire downstairs, and a ban from even looking at the machine by a nearly speechless Maddie. Trying to give Ozzy a haircut had been a bad idea. The poor pup just looked so hot, and Sonic figured shaving some of that fur may help. Trouble was, they didn't have exactly the right type of clippers for his fur, so Sonic had used Tom's electric shaver. Kinda worked, although Tom was pretty mad. Taking a baseball bat to a hornet's nest had been a really bad idea. He honestly wasn't sure what he was thinking in that particular situation. As with most things, he had convinced himself it was a good idea at the time, only to be proven very wrong after execution. Which is what was happening now. Showing Tails and Knuckles his cave had seemed like a good idea. But now, right this very minute, he cursed himself for even entertaining the thought. Memories flooded back to him, dredged up by simply being here again. He hadn't come back here more than a handful of times since he moved in with Tom and Maddie, and each time seemed harder than the last. The most recent time had been about 5 months ago, when he had been feeling brave and embarrassed by the effects of the previous visits. What was he so upset about? It was just a cave. He'd lived there for years. What was the big deal? That was his first mistake. His second mistake had been to go in the middle of the night. He'd had that dream again. The one where Tom and Maddie force him to go back and live in the cave, saying that they already got one pet and they don't need another. The word echoed through Sonic's mind, as the couple stood there and looked upon him with amused grins. Pet. They didn't need another pet, and they didn't really care about him, and they didn't love him, and everything they had done up to this point had been them essentially taking care of some stray they found and brought home. And oh, his chest hurt. He couldn't breathe. He was dying. Run. He needed to run. And so he did, as fast as he could, back to his cave, where all his things had been unceremoniously tossed back inside in a heap of discarded, unimportant junk, which seemed a pretty fitting expression of how he felt at the moment. Discarded. Unimportant. Junk. His dreams of having a home, a family, shattered. Back where he began, but this time he knew how it felt to be wanted. To be included. To be welcomed. To have a home with people who cared about you. But it was gone. They didn't care. They didn't want him. They threw him out. They didn't love him. And so he stood in the heap of his 10 years of scavenging, looking upon the trash he'd collected, and decided he was part of it. Trash. This was his home, this underground junk pile. This was where he belonged. And he had screamed, hands curled into fists so tight his claws tore through the fabric of his gloves, digging into the soft meat of his palms. That familiar, yet somewhat scary energy sparking through his quills and jumping to anything close by. More and more it built inside him, changing from electric blue to blinding white as he let loose all the emotions in his heart. Anger, sadness, disbelief, loneliness, and pain. So much pain. Over 10 years of pain. He screamed until his vocal cords felt hot and raw, but still the energy built. Cheeks soaked with tears, he crumpled to his knees, mouth open and chest hitching in wheezing sobs. His chest hurt, his ribs ached, his lungs burned. And the energy grew. What started as a tingle, like a chill running up his spine, turned into a heat, a great raging fire feeding off his emotions. Sobs barked past his raw throat, and he cried, seemingly no end to his tears. Sucking in a deep breath, he threw his head back, forcing a new scream from his lungs, one filled with rage and pain and the unending emptiness of a little boy lost, left alone by those who promised to care for him. He hated them all. And the energy that had built inside him, that had swollen to the point of no return, finally released. In a blinding white flash that felt like he was turning inside out, his skin hot and feverish. And it did more than knock out power grids and electric transformers and the passing satellites in orbit. It obliterated everything. Every living thing. Except him. He was still alive, only now he was really alone, completely alone, the only living thing in a charred wasteland, and he was so sorry. He didn't mean to do that. Please someone, anyone, don't leave him alone. He had awoken with tears on his cheeks, hitching in quick, shallow breaths. It took a few seconds for his eyes to focus, but finally he recognized where he was. In the attic with all his stuff. Tom's snores drifted up through the vent, and he heard Maddie's soft voice say something before they quieted. A normal night, just like all the other nights before. As though nothing were wrong. Decisions in the dead of night, especially after a particularly traumatic and terrifying dream, were hardly what you would call well thought out. But that night, Sonic decided to go to his cave and prove to himself that, despite seeing all his things still occupying the attic, it was truly empty. That he did not belong there. That it did not still symbolize his fears and sadness from long ago. And so he had gone, running the familiar path to his former home. He'd rolled through the cave's mouth, it's not really a mouth, don't think of it as a mouth, and stood in the middle of the floor, almost daring the space to hurt him. First he had done fine. It was just rock and dirt and moss. Nothing more. Some small animals had taken shelter in it, and they scurried into the darkest corners at the sudden appearance of a preteen hedgehog in the middle of the night. Just a cave. And then his mind had betrayed him. Memories flashed, bringing with them the emotions that twisted the hedgehog's heart and tightened his chest. Loneliness, sadness, guilt, anger, pain. He swayed on his feet, dizzy with the sudden physical reaction to them. It was as if the walls were saturated with the psychic imprint of these feelings, and just standing here drew them out, seeping into Sonic's skin, reminding him they were still there, they would always be there. As if the cave itself was the physical embodiment of those emotions, and more than eager to leach them back into Sonic whenever the boy dared set foot back here. The Sonic from 5 months ago had burst into tears, panic tightening his chest, threatening to close his airway, and scrambled for the exit as the first sob climbed out his throat. He had run home faster than before, and gone straight to Tom and Maddie's bedroom door. He rapped his knuckles against the wood, a little too hard for the time of night, and called their names. Movement inside, and the door opened with a worried Maddie on the other side. He collapsed into her, managing something about a bad dream through his hitching sobs, and then Tom was there, picking him up and carrying him to their bed, whispering soothing words into his ear. It had taken him a while to calm and fall back asleep, nestled between these two people who really did care about him, who really did love him. That was the last time he'd been to the cave. Until now, and right now Sonic cursed himself for coming here. Tails and Knuckles were standing behind him, he could feel their eyes on his back. This had been a mistake, why had he been so stupid to bring them here? The cave closed in around him, those familiar, yet hated, emotions choking him like thick smoke. Chest tightening, he couldn't breathe. Air refused to move past his throat into his lungs. His chest moved, mouth opened and closed, but he could not breathe. Energy sparked and jumped from his quills, and still he could not breathe. He turned and found Knuckles pulling Tails behind him, backing toward the cave entrance. Sonic reached for them, patting his throat with his other hand, miming what he hoped they'd recognize as the "I can't breathe" gesture. The edges of his vision darkened, and panic laced icy fingers into his mind. He'd felt this before. In the flooded temple. Drowning. Felt like he was drowning.
He can't breathe, Knuckles. He can't breathe.
The echidna pushed the boy behind him, keeping himself between the kit and sparking hedgehog.
Why? What is happening?
It's the cave. He's panicking. There are too many bad memories here, bad feelings, something. Knuckles? He can't breathe. We need to calm him down.
The younger boy said, trying to move around the older one. Knuckles blocked his every attempt to get past.
You need to go.
Without another word, Knuckles turned, picked up the kit, and tossed him up and out of the cave.
Knuckles!
Stay where it is safe, Fox.
The echidna turned to the sparking hedgehog, who swayed on his feet. The boy still clawed at his throat, but the movements were weaker now. Sonic was on the verge of passing out. Knuckles was on the edge of panic himself, having no idea what to do in a situation like this. The hedgehog needed help, and his sparking meant only Knuckles could reach him, but what could he do? He was a warrior, not a light green glow drew his attention, and he looked down to see light seeping through the coarse weave of the bag at his hip. The emerald? What? Images flashed in his mind then, and a wave of calm passed over him, like a cool wind on a hot summer day. Certainty replaced confusion. Focus replaced panic. He knew what to do.
Sonic, you must focus on me.
He kept his voice low and calm as he moved toward the struggling hedgehog.
Think of nothing else. Focus on my voice.
The younger boy's eyes opened wide in alarm as Knuckles approached, and now his hands moved to a stay-back gesture.
I will not harm you.
He paused, registering the way Sonic backed away.
No, you think you will hurt me with your energy.
The blue boy gave a short nod.
You will not hurt me, Sonic. You must focus.
Sonic tried to focus. He really did. But what he needed more was air. The more panicked he became, the more he sparked, and the more worried he'd hurt someone unintentionally, which kicked the panic up another notch and started the loop over again. And now Knuckles was coming closer. Even though they had tussled using their full power-up modes, he didn't want to take a chance that he may hurt the echidna in his frenzied state.
Focus on my voice.
The older boy said again, moving ever closer. Why did he seem so calm?
Clear your mind. Focus on nothing but me and my voice. Close your eyes and listen.
That wasn't going to be an option soon. The dark edges of Sonic's vision were growing. He stumbled to his knees, his eyes drooping closed. A frantic thought flashed. If he passed out, would he ever wake up?
Hear me, Hedgehog.
Knuckles' voice was right by his ear now. The boy had closed the distance between them in a heartbeat. His words cut through the snaps and cracks produced by the sparks arcing along Sonic's quills. Soft, deep, and above all calm.
You are safe. This place cannot harm you. You must conquer whatever hold this cave has on you, and breathe.
A large hand appeared on each shoulder.
You have people who care for you, and hold you close to their hearts. See their faces in your mind. Your donut lord and pretzel lady.
Sonic pictured them, smiling and laughing over pancakes in the morning.
The fox, Tails.
The young kit's face came to mind, those big blue eyes looking up at Sonic with admiration. The sparks faded. Knuckles paused.
I would also like to call you my friend.
Images flashed in Sonic's mind, starting with the ill-fated first meeting between them. But soon, calmer memories surfaced. Their moment on the mountain, saving each other in the flooding temple, playing King of the Tower on the playground. And now, the big tough warrior Knuckles the Echidna was displaying concern for his friend. Even after how Sonic had behaved around him, how he had treated him, this boy still considered Sonic a friend. For whatever reason, that snapped through the paralyzing effects the cave held over him. Just enough to let the hedgehog gasp in a single long breath. The remaining sparks leaping across his quills fizzled out.
Good. Slowly, easy.
One of the large hands moved to Sonic's back, as the other moved to support the now coughing hedgehog.
You are safe. Focus on your breathing. I have you.
Is he okay, Knuckles?
Sonic looked up to see the fox's head pop into view.
He's breathing again.
The echidna said, and gave the gasping boy a gentle pat on the back.
He has done well to fight his fears.
A soft flittering sound followed by a thump as Tails re-entered the cave. Then a small pair of arms wrapped around Sonic's middle, pushing the blue boy off balance.
So worried about you, Sonic. I'm so glad.
I'm okay, buddy. I'm okay.
He still felt a little dizzy.
Let us leave this place.
Knuckles said, getting to his feet.
We have left the library books unattended for long enough.
He glanced down at Sonic.
And I believe Scholar Callie would be most unhappy if they were damaged on the...
A hint of a smile curled the echidna's lips.
Yeah, she'd make me work it off.
I think that sounds like fun.
Tails said, helping Sonic to his feet. The older boy staggered, his breathing still uneven.
You would...
Come, let us see the progress those men have made on the repairs to your home.
Knuckles said, moving to stand with his back facing Sonic. Then he lowered himself to one knee. Sonic cocked an eyebrow, catching the hint.
I'm fine. I don't need a piggyback ride.
The echidna turned, his own eyebrow arched.
Piggyback ride.
I don't need to be carried.
I have no intention of carrying you, Hedgehog. I will help you out of this cave, and then you may walk on your own.
The blue boy furrowed his brow, his pride taking a hit. So, okay, he may have freaked out a teeny bit and sure may have almost passed out from his panic attack, but he didn't need carried out of here like some weak kid. He was fine. Well, better at least. Although his legs did feel a little wobbly still. He wasn't sure he could walk, let alone jump well enough to get to the entrance. And he had to admit, this cave seemed to be like his kryptonite. Being here messed with him in just about every regard, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And even heroes needed some help every now and then. It didn't make them any less hero-y, did it?
I can fly you out, Sonic, if that's better.
It wasn't, but being airlifted out seemed a bit less embarrassing than riding on someone's back.
Sure, Tails, that'd be great.
He turned to Knuckles.
No offense, big guy, but that opening's a bit small. Don't want to risk cracking my skull because it's not big enough for both of us to fit.
The echidna nodded, returning to a standing position.
I am not offended. I will go first, in case assistance is needed.
And with that, Knuckles turned and walked toward the entrance, leaping up and out with little effort. Turned out, some assistance was required, as Tails had some difficulty maneuvering himself and a passenger out of the cave. Knuckles took Sonic from the fox, and carried the boy a reasonable distance away from the cave opening before placing him gently on the ground, leaning against a tree. The hedgehog felt a little embarrassed to be carried bridal style, or at all really, but neither boy said anything in that moment. Knuckles' only comment,
Rest,
came as he released Sonic, before going back to retrieve the library books.
Are you sure you're okay? I was really scared.
Tails said, wringing his hands together at his chest.
Yeah, I'm okay, Tails.
He paused, his voice softer.
And to tell you the truth, so was I.
we will go after you have regained your strength.
Knuckles said, sitting hard against a tree a few yards away. He turned his head, not looking toward the other two. Tails looked back at Sonic.
It's a good thing Knuckles was there. I wouldn't know how to find your parents if it was just you and me.
The hedgehog flicked his eyes to the fox, before looking away just as quickly. That made 3. The third time today Tom and Maddie were referred to as his parents. Why did everyone insist that's what they were? They were friends. His first real friends who accepted him and actually wanted him around. Carl and Callie and Tails must have just been confused. Maybe they simply did one of those things when you said one word but meant another. It would be rude to keep correcting them. But just because he lived with 2 adults who cared an awful lot about him, protected him and took care of him, made sure he was safe and fed and loved. That thought pushed forward again. More clear than it had been before. Or maybe it said in whisper, maybe you're the one who's confused. Sonic cleared his throat. His chest had loosened, and he felt more himself. Physically anyway.
Let's head back. Maddie's probably on her way home.
He said, standing. To his relief, his legs held him without shaking. They walked back toward the house, Sonic leading the way, his mouth on autopilot as he and Tails chatted about the other animals that lived in the forest, Earth seasons, and the feasibility of teaching the fox how to spin dash. The hedgehog glanced back, noticing how Knuckles trailed behind, his face furrowed in thought. Sonic could relate. His own mind still mulled over that new thought that had whispered to him not long ago. The boys arrived back at the house just as Maddie pulled into the driveway. They were all surprised to discover the workmen had not only closed the giant hole in the outside wall, but had also repaired the small hole on the inside wall as well. Fresh patching mud glared bright white against the rest of the painted wall, but would easily be covered with a new paint job. Sonic blew out a long whistle.
They worked fast.
Maddie nodded, admiring the patch.
And looks like they did a good job.
She found a note on the kitchen island as she slid the laptop bag off her shoulder.
Looks like they're done with the bulk of it. And are now just waiting for the siding and correct windows to come in. Might take a few days.
I think we can live with that. How was work?
The hedgehog said, hopping onto a stool at the island.
Mrs. Winchester brought her high-strung poodle in for a teeth cleaning.
Maddie said, pulling some juice boxes out of the fridge and passing them out. Sonic chuckled, poking the straws into each juice box before handing them back to the fox and echidna. The two had worn identical expressions of confusion at the little container.
Muffy? I take it everyone counted all their fingers afterwards.
She nodded with a smile.
Thankfully, everyone still had the same number they came to work with.
She glanced between the boys.
How was your day? Have fun?
The blue boy took a deep drag on his juice box, the memory of his panic attack still fresh.
Sonic introduced us to just about everyone in town. We helped Mr. Carl at his place. And then Miss Callie made me a library card so I could borrow some books.
Tails said, becoming airborne to sit next to Sonic at the counter.
It was really great.
Yeah, Cal texted me all about your visit.
Maddie said, pulling some chicken out of the fridge.
Knuckles, She said you're learning to write?
The echidna gave a short nod.
Had no need of it while on my quest, but now I thought it may be beneficial.
Can I see?
Knuckles blinked, obviously surprised at such a request. Then he nodded again, sat his juice box on the counter, and pulled the pages from his bag. Maddie took them and smiled as she flipped through them.
Looks like you're off to a really good start. I can work with you more after dinner if you like.
The boy nodded.
I would appreciate the additional practice. I plan to head back to the library tomorrow for more lessons from Scholar Kelly.
Sounds like a good plan.
The woman turned to Sonic.
You're awfully quiet all of a sudden. You okay, Sonic?
The hedgehog forced a smile, nodding.
Yeah, just a bit of a headache. Been a busy day.
Tails was looking at him. He could feel the kit's heavy gaze. He prayed neither one mentioned the panic attack. That was a can of worms he didn't want to open with Maddie. He hated when either Tom or Maddie looked upon him with pity, which is what would happen if they discovered he had freaked out to the point of nearly suffocating himself. Now in the safety of his new home, the whole incident at the cave seemed stupid and embarrassing.
Sonic took us to see the cave he lived in before he came to you.
Knuckles said, tossing his empty juice box into the trash.
Oh.
Maddie asked, casting a side eye at the blue boy. The hedgehog flinched. Of course Knuckles would bring it up, and of course he'd now talk about how he had helped when Sonic went temporarily nuts and made a fool of himself in front of them. Just keep talking, you perfect echidna. Tell her all about how you...
It was a fine burrow, well hidden and safe from any who would cause him harm.
I suppose it was a great place to keep out of sight, but I don't want you boys going back there. Tom said the ground around it was shifting, especially during heavy rains. I would worry about the place collapsing while you're there. It's not safe,
Maddie said, gathering some vegetables and spices for dinner.
Yes, ma'am.
Tails said, snatching a baby carrot to munch on. Knuckles nodded.
Understood.
And that was it. No one mentioned the panic attack or how he had nearly passed out or anything that had happened there. Sonic turned and looked at Knuckles, who gave him a barely noticeable nod as the older boy walked toward the stairs. The night passed as close to normal as Sonic had seen since the fight with Eggman. Donut Lord came home and received a rerun report of what the boys had done during the day, and complimented Knuckles' venture into the world of writing. Dinner went mostly okay. Knuckles still needed to learn to pull back his strength, and 2 forks were bent and twisted beyond repair. After, the family settled down to introduce the new boys to the ever-entertaining land of television. Tails had been transfixed, but Knuckles did not understand the lure of watching made-up stories. He excused himself shortly after, and retreated to the attic. Sonic felt antsy. He hadn't gone for a run for a while, and he twitched with pent-up energy. Tom recognized the issue, and suggested they take Ozzy for a walk while Tails and Maddie continued watching the show. The hedgehog had agreed without a thought, and off they went. Tom walked the dog at a more leisurely pace, while Sonic literally ran circles around him in a mile-wide radius. After 20 minutes, the boy joined man and dog, and walked back toward the house at a more casual speed.
How are you getting along with your new friends?
Tom said, hands stuffed in his pockets while Sonic held Ozzy's leash. The boy thought for a few seconds.
It was a little hard in the beginning, but I think things are going okay now.
Good, because according to the government, Maddie and I are your guardians now. Theirs too.
Sonic blinked.
What?
We signed an agreement today that basically says the government recognizes you 3 as under our protection. We accept responsibility for you guys, and they stay off our backs.
The smile on the man's face twitched for a second. Then he sighed and shrugged.
Not that it makes any real difference, right? I mean, we've been watching out for you for over 8 months now.
Right.
The hedgehog frowned, his brow furrowed.
Then why sign any agreement at all? I mean, if it doesn't change anything.
Sometimes it's nice to kind of make things official.
And this way you guys are safe from the government just swooping in to take you to Area 51 or something whenever they feel like it. According to this agreement, we're your guardians.
Sonic bit his lip. Guardians. That's another word for...
Home at last.
Tom said, climbing the front porch stairs.
Want to watch something tonight?
It's not technically movie night, but I think we can make an exception.
The hedgehog shook his head, a small smile on his lips.
Nah, I think I'm gonna go check on Knuckles. and then maybe look at my new book until bed. I'm kinda beat.
Tom nodded, ushering Ozzy into the house.
Okay, Bud, let me know if you change your mind.
Knuckles?
Sonic called as he stepped into the attic. The older boy was curled up under his blanket, a perfect echidna burrito.
Nux, you awake?
Movement and the blanket unfurled to reveal the galaxy's greatest warrior. His brows pulled into a thoughtful knot. His hands clutched the emerald's bag.
I am. What do you need?
Sonic sat cross-legged on the floor in front of Knuckles' mattress.
I just wanted to thank you for what you did today. I was really scared. I'm glad you were there.
The echidna shook his head.
I did nothing special. That place holds strong emotions from your past, and you were consumed with fear. That is a very powerful feeling, one that can bring even the bravest to their knees. I could not stand by and watch you suffer. I could not stand by and watch you suffer.
How did you know what to do?
Knuckles didn't respond at first, but looked down at the bag in his lap.
I don't know. I just did.
Sonic followed his gaze, watching as the older boy's hands tightened over the shape of the emerald.
Do you want me to take that for a while? You've been carrying it for a few days now?
No!
Sharp. Almost a snap. Sonic jerked and Knuckles blinked, seeming to realize his tone. He dipped his head in a short bow.
I apologize. I am fine to carry it for now. The offer is appreciated, however.
The hedgehog studied the older boy.
Hey, Knuckles, are you okay?
Another head dip and a nod.
Yes, I am just tired. As you said, it was a busy day.
Sonic studied him for another moment before a new thought surfaced.
Oh, I also wanted to talk to you about the way I've been acting around you.
Knuckles' brows raised, and to Sonic's surprise, a small smile appeared on the echidna's lip.
I have also wanted to speak with you regarding that.
Yeah, I know I haven't been very nice sometimes. I can't really help it. I mean, look at you.
He gestured to the older boy's strong physique.
And after everything you've done, it just really makes me feel kinda bad.
The smile dropped from the echidna's lips and a confused look replaced it.
Everything I've done?
Yeah, big bad echidna, greatest warrior in the galaxy. You've been out fighting and doing all this stuff to find the Master Emerald, and I've just been stuck here, hiding and playing ping pong with myself. Kinda doesn't seem fair.
And it wasn't fair. That Knuckles had lost his entire childhood, not to mention his tribe, over some beef with the Owl Warriors. Sure, the emerald was something that needed hidden to keep out of the wrong hands, but it still wasn't fair that either one of them had to lose everything they cared about because of the thing. Knuckles still wore that expression of confusion.
I don't understand.
We both lost everything that day, and it's not fair. If Longclaw hadn't hidden the emerald, your tribe wouldn't have attacked her, and none of this would have happened.
The echidna said nothing. The confused look was still there, and another expression floated across it. Sonic thought it looked like anger, but it was there and gone like a flicker from a dying candle. Voices carried up the stairs, as Tom and Maddie carried a sleeping Tails up. Sonic gave a quick glance down the stairs, then looked back at Knuckles.
Hey, I'm glad we talked. I promise I'll try to be better and not hold, this.
He gestured to Knuckles.
Against you anymore. I just need to get over it.
With that, the hedgehog zipped over to his bed with the library book open in his lap, looking for all the world like he had been there the whole time. Knuckles sat quietly as the humans put Tails to bed, and said good night to the hedgehog. He nodded politely when they spoke to him, but he barely heard what they said. His mind was whirling from his conversation with Sonic. Was the boy angry with him or not? Judging by the things he said, it kind of sounded like he was, but the tone of the conversation sounded like he was apologizing. So he wasn't angry? A headache thumped behind Knuckles' temple. It had started, although only very slightly, in the cave during Sonic's panic attack. When the emerald had glowed. That was unusual. He hadn't been holding it or trying to use it in any way. But then images had appeared in his head. Had the emerald done that? Supplied him with what he needed to help Sonic? He didn't know. Now more than ever, he wished he had someone to ask. That he wasn't the last of his kind. The elders of his village would have known what the emerald was capable of. They would know what to do with the gem now. But they weren't here. It was up to him to figure it out. Sighing, Knuckles curled up again, tucking the emerald's bag close to his chest and pulling the blanket over his head. He felt safe in this artificial burrow. Questions swirled in his mind as his headache thumped on. And as sleep finally came for him, the emerald hummed against his chest. A soft green glow emanated from inside the canvas bag, and Knuckles dreamed.